The sound of crystal shattering echoed through the marble ballroom as the tray slipped from Celeste's hands. For one terrible moment, silence gripped the Kim family gathering, 30 of Vancouver's most influential Korean community members watching the Jamaican housemaid freeze in panic. Then Yoon Si-woo's charming laugh broke the tension. "Perfect timing," he said, stepping over the broken glass with practiced ease. "I was just about to ask you to dance anyway." Celeste's heart hammered as every eye in the room turned to them. This wasn't supposed to happen. She was supposed to be invisible, professional, forgettable. But Si-woo's hand was already extended, his boyish grin daring her to refuse in front of everyone. I should clean this up," she whispered, her slight Jamaican accent thickening with nerves. "The staff will handle it," Si-woo said smoothly, loud enough for the watching crowd. "Come on, don't leave me hanging." Before she could protest, before she could think of a polite way to decline, a deeper voice cut through the air like silk over steel. "She dances with me." Kim Jae-hyun materialized beside them, his presence commanding instant attention. His dark eyes never left Celeste's face as he intercepted his younger brother's outstretched hand with fluid precision. The ballroom fell into absolute silence. "Hyung," Si-woo started, but Jae-hyun's gaze finally shifted to him, and whatever his little brother saw there made him step back immediately. Celeste's breath caught as Jae-hyun's attention returned to her, intense and unreadable. "If you'll allow me," he said quietly, offering his hand. She stared at those elegant fingers, knowing that accepting would change everything. 3 months earlier, Celeste Johnson had stood in the marble foyer of the Kim mansion, her professional smile firmly in place as Mrs. Violet Brown. The head housekeeper led her through the orientation tour. "The family values discretion above all else," Mrs. Brown explained in her crisp Jamaican accent, her silver hair pulled into an immaculate bun. "Mr. Kim Jae-hyun is a very private man. You'll find him respectful but distant. That's how he prefers it." Celeste nodded, adjusting the strap of her leather portfolio. At 26, she'd managed luxury hotels across Vancouver for 5 years before Gregory Ashford destroyed her career with his retaliation. Now she was starting over as a domestic worker, and she'd be damned if she'd let pride get in the way of paying her bills. "The younger Mr. Yoon Si-woo lives here as well," Mrs. Brown continued, leading her up the grand staircase. "Charming boy, but—" she paused delicately. "He has an appreciation for beautiful women. Professional boundaries are especially important with him." The mansion was a masterpiece of modern Korean architecture blended with Canadian luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked English Bay, while traditional Korean art hung alongside contemporary pieces. Everything spoke of wealth, but also of taste and culture. "Your background in hotel management is exactly what we need," Mrs. Brown said as they entered what would be Celeste's domain, a spacious office adjacent to the main kitchen. "Mr. Kim entertains frequently. Business dinners, cultural events, family gatherings. He needs someone who understands luxury hospitality." Celeste ran her fingers along the mahogany desk, feeling a familiar thrill. This was what she'd trained for, what she'd excelled at. Even if the title was different, the skills were the same. "The salary is generous," Mrs. Brown added, naming a figure that made Celeste's eyes widen. "Mr. Kim believes in compensating fairly for excellence." "It's perfect," Celeste said honestly. "When do I start?" "Tomorrow. But there's one more thing, Mrs." Brown's expression grew serious. "Mr. Kim's father passed 2 years ago. He inherited complicated business responsibilities. The family has been under some scrutiny lately. Nothing serious, just bureaucratic nonsense. But it means everyone in this household must be absolutely trustworthy." Celeste straightened. "You have my word. I'm here to work, nothing more." "Mrs." Brown smiled for the first time. "I believe you are, child. Welcome to the family." The next morning, Celeste arrived at 6 a.m. sharp, her natural curls pulled into a professional chignon, wearing a crisp white blouse and black slacks. Mrs. Han Boram, the family chef, greeted her with a warm smile and broken English mixed with Korean. "You help with big dinner tonight," Mrs. Han said, gesturing to the impressive spread of ingredients covering the marble countertops. "Important guests. Mr. Kim very, how you say, nervous." Celeste slipped into her element immediately. Within an hour, she'd reorganized the serving schedule, coordinated with the florist, and created a timeline that would ensure everything ran smoothly. Mrs. Han watched with growing approval. "You very good," the older woman said. "Mr. Kim choose well." At exactly 7 p.m. the guests began arriving. Celeste positioned herself in the butler's pantry, where she could observe without being seen, ensuring each course flowed seamlessly. The dinner was clearly important. She recognized several faces from Vancouver's business pages. That's when she first saw him. Kim Jae-hyun entered the dining room like he owned not just the house, but the very air inside it. He was taller than she'd expected, with perfectly styled black hair and a face that belonged in magazines. But it was his presence that struck her, the way conversations paused when he spoke, how every person in the room seemed to orbit around his quiet authority. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly salary, but it was his eyes that caught her attention. Dark, intelligent, and carrying a weight that seemed too heavy for someone who couldn't be much older than 35. "The wine selection is excellent," one guest commented. "Celeste chose it," Mrs. Brown murmured to Mrs. Han, not knowing Celeste could hear. "Girl has an eye for these things." Jae-hyun's head turned slightly, and for one heart-stopping moment, his gaze found hers through the service window. Their eyes met across the space, and something electric passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or curiosity. Then Sai-woo burst through the front door, all charm and energy, and the moment shattered. "Sorry I'm late, Hyung," Sai-woo called out, using the Korean term for older brother. Traffic was insane. Where Jae-hyun was controlled intensity, Si-woo was warm charisma. Younger by nearly a decade, he had the same handsome features, but with an easy smile that probably got him out of trouble regularly. "We've already started," Jae-hyun said calmly, but Celeste caught the slight tightening around his eyes. "I'll catch up." Si-woo grinned, then stopped as his gaze swept the room and landed on the service window where Celeste stood. His smile widened. "And who might you be?" Heat flooded Celeste's cheeks as she realized she'd been caught staring. She stepped back from the window, but it was too late. "That's our new household coordinator," Mrs. Brown said smoothly. "Celeste Johnson." "Celeste," Si-woo repeated, like he was tasting the name. "Beautiful name for a beautiful woman." "Si-woo." Jae-hyun's voice carried a warning that made his younger brother laugh. "What? I'm just being friendly." The dinner continued without incident, but Celeste felt eyes on her throughout the evening. Every time she emerged to supervise a course change, she sensed someone watching. When she finally risked a glance, she found Jae-hyun's dark gaze following her movements with an intensity that made her pulse race. After the guests left and the kitchen was cleaned, Celeste was gathering her things when Mrs. Brown approached. "Mr. Kim would like to see you in his study," she said. "Don't look so worried, child. He just wants to thank you personally." The study was all dark wood and leather, with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a view of the city lights. Jae-hyun stood behind his desk, having traded his suit jacket for rolled shirt sleeves that revealed strong forearms. "Mrs. Brown tells me tonight went exceptionally well," he said without preamble. His voice was deeper than she'd expected, with just a hint of accent. "Thank you, sir. I'm glad everything met your expectations." It exceeded them. He moved around the desk and she caught a hint of expensive cologne mixed with something uniquely him. "Your background shows, Miss Johnson. This level of coordination requires real skill." "I appreciate the opportunity to use it," she said honestly. He studied her for a long moment, and she had the unsettling feeling he was seeing far more than she intended to reveal. "Mrs. Brown mentioned you worked at the Fairmont Pacific Rim," he said finally. Celeste's stomach tightened. "Yes, sir. For 5 years." That's an impressive establishment. What brought you to domestic work? The question hung in the air. She could lie, give some generic answer about wanting a change, but something in his steady gaze demanded honesty. I was terminated after reporting financial irregularities, she said quietly. My former manager made sure I was blacklisted from hotel management positions. Jae-hyun's expression didn't change, but she sensed something shift in the air between them. That requires courage, he said finally. Doing the right thing when it costs you everything. It was the only choice I could live with. Yes, he said softly. I imagine it was. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of unspoken understanding settling between them. I hope you'll be happy here, Miss Johnson, he said finally. This house could use someone who understands the value of integrity. As she walked home that night, Celeste couldn't shake the feeling that Kim Jae-hyun had seen straight into her soul. And the most unsettling part was how much she'd wanted him to. 2 weeks into her employment, Celeste had established a routine that kept her busy and, more importantly, kept her from thinking too much about her enigmatic employer. She arrived each morning at 6, coordinated the day's activities, managed the household staff, and left by evening unless there was an event. It was a good system. Professional. Safe. Until the morning she found Jae-hyun in the kitchen at 5:30 a.m., standing at the coffee machine in nothing but black pajama pants and a white t-shirt, his hair mussed from sleep. Oh! Celeste stopped short in the doorway, her cheeks burning. I'm sorry, I didn't realize. It's fine, he said without turning around. I couldn't sleep. Coffee. She should have declined, should have made an excuse and left. Instead, she found herself saying, please. He handed her a mug, and their fingers brushed in the exchange. The contact lasted only a second, but it sent electricity shooting up her arm. You're early today, he observed, leaning against the counter. Big event tonight. I wanted to get a head start. She wrapped her hands around the warm mug, using it as a shield. The Korean Cultural Society dinner. Ah, yes. My mother's favorite charity. Something flickered across his face. She would have loved tonight. Mrs. Brown mentioned she passed away when you were young. 15. He stared into his coffee. Cancer, it was. Difficult. The vulnerability in his voice made her chest ache. I'm sorry, that must have been incredibly hard. It was harder on my father. He never really recovered. Jae-hyun looked up, and she saw something raw in his dark eyes. He threw himself into business after that, built an empire but forgot how to live. And you? The question slipped out before she could stop it. His smile was sad. I'm still figuring that out. They stood in comfortable silence as the sun began to rise over English Bay, painting the kitchen in golden light. Celeste had never felt more aware of another person's presence, the way he breathed, the subtle shift of his shoulders, the warmth radiating from his skin. I should go, she said finally, setting down her empty mug. Celeste. Her name on his lips made her pause. Thank you for listening. She nodded, not trusting her voice, and fled before she could do something foolish. The Cultural Society dinner was the largest event she'd coordinated yet. 200 guests, 5 courses, traditional Korean music, and a silent auction that raised over $50,000. Celeste moved through the evening like a conductor leading an orchestra, ensuring every detail was perfect. She was in the kitchen checking on dessert when Saiwoo appeared beside her. You're incredible at this, he said, genuine admiration in his voice. Seriously, I've never seen an event run so smoothly. Thank you, she said, focused on the plating. Your brother has high standards. He does, but he's also never complimented staff the way he complimented you last week. Celeste's hands stilled. What do you mean? Siwoo grinned. He told Mrs. Brown you were exceptionally capable and refreshingly honest. That's practically poetry coming from Jae-hyun. Heat crept up her neck. He was just being polite, My brother doesn't do polite. He does efficient, effective, and occasionally terrifying, but never polite. Saiwoo leaned against the counter. He likes you. We have a professional relationship, Celeste said firmly. Uh-huh. Saiwoo's grin widened. Is that why he's been asking Mrs. Brown about your schedule? Or why he suddenly needs to review every event plan personally? Before Celeste could respond, the man himself appeared in the doorway. Jae-hyun's gaze moved between them, settling on his brother with obvious displeasure. Siwoo, shouldn't you be entertaining our guests? Just complimenting our excellent coordinator, Siwoo said innocently. Celeste was telling me about her hotel background. Fascinating stuff. Jae-hyun's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. I'm sure it is. Perhaps you could share your fascination with the Lees. They've been asking about you. It was clearly a dismissal. Siwoo laughed but took the hint. Duty calls. Celeste, save me a dance later. She'll be working, Jae-hyun said before she could answer. After Siwoo left, an awkward silence settled between them. Celeste focused on the dessert plates, hyper-aware of Jae-hyun's presence behind her. The evening is going well, he said finally. Thank you. The Korean Cultural Society seems pleased. They should be. You've raised more money tonight than they have in the past 3 years combined. Pride warmed her chest. I'm glad I could help. Celeste. His voice was closer now, and she realized he'd moved to stand beside her. About Saiwoo, it's fine, she said quickly. He was just being friendly. Saiwoo is always friendly, especially with beautiful women. The compliment hung in the air between them. Celeste's pulse quickened, but she kept her voice steady. I can handle myself, Mr. Kim. I know you can. His hand appeared in her peripheral vision, reaching for a spoon on the counter. The movement brought him close enough that she could feel the heat of his body. That's not what concerns me. What does? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was low and rough. The fact that I want to tell him to stay away from you, that I want to keep you all to myself. Celeste's breath caught. She turned to face him, and found herself trapped between his body and the counter. He wasn't touching her, but he was close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. Mr. Kim. Jae-hyun, he corrected softly. When we're alone, just Jae-hyun. This isn't appropriate, she whispered, even as her body betrayed her by leaning slightly toward him. No, he agreed. It isn't. But he didn't move away. Neither did she. The sound of Mrs. Han calling for dessert service broke the spell. Jae-hyun stepped back, his professional mask sliding into place. The guests are waiting, he said formally. Celeste nodded, not trusting her voice. As she gathered the dessert plates, she felt his gaze on her like a physical touch. Later that night, as she was leaving through the service entrance, she found him waiting by her car. Let me drive you home, he said. It's late. I'm fine, really. Celeste. The way he said her name made her knees weak. Please. The ride to her apartment was silent, except for the soft jazz playing on the radio. When he pulled up to her building, she reached for the door handle. Thank you for tonight, he said. For everything. She looked back at him. This powerful man who seemed so alone despite his wealth and status. You don't have to thank me for doing my job. This wasn't about the job. The admission hung between them, heavy with possibility and danger. Good night, Jae-hyun, she said softly. Good night, Celeste. As she walked to her building, she could feel him watching until she was safely inside. Only then did she hear his car pull away. In her apartment, Celeste leaned against the door and closed her eyes. She was in trouble. Deep, complicated, heart-stopping trouble. And the worst part was, she didn't want to find her way out. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Celeste was reviewing catering options when Mrs. Brown announced that Dr. Seo Dong-wook had arrived for Jae-hyun's monthly checkup. He's been the family physician for 15 years, Mrs. Brown explained as they watched an elegant man in his 50s enter the house. Lovely man. Treated Jae-hyun's father until the end. Celeste nodded politely, but her attention was caught by the way Jae-hyun's entire demeanor changed when he greeted the doctor. The formal mask dropped, replaced by something warmer, more genuine. Uncle Dong-wook, Jae-hyun said, using the Korean term of respect. You're early. Traffic was light, Dr. Seo replied with a kind smile, and I wanted to meet your new household coordinator, Mrs. Brown has been singing her praises. Celeste found herself being introduced to the doctor, who studied her with intelligent eyes. Ah, the famous Celeste, he said warmly. Jae-hyun mentioned you've revolutionized the household management. He did? The words slipped out before she could stop them. Dr. Seo's smile widened. Indeed. Quite enthusiastically, actually. Jae-hyun shot the doctor a warning look, but Dr. Seo seemed unperturbed. After they disappeared into Jae-hyun's study for the appointment, Celeste tried to focus on her work, but she couldn't shake the doctor's words. Jae-hyun had talked about her, enthusiastically. An hour later, she was arranging flowers in the main hallway when raised voices drifted from the study. Your blood pressure is elevated again, Dr. Seo was saying, and you've lost weight. When was the last time you slept more than 4 hours? I'm fine, Jae-hyun replied tersely. You're not fine. You're stressed, overworked, and isolating yourself. This isn't what your father would have wanted. My father built this empire. I'm just maintaining it. Your father also told me once that a man without love is just a machine in an expensive suit. Dr. Seo's voice was gentle but firm. He wanted you to be happy, not just successful. There was a long pause before Jae-hyun spoke again. Happiness is a luxury I can't afford. Or perhaps it's the one thing you can't afford to live without. Celeste realized she was eavesdropping and quickly moved away, but the conversation haunted her. The loneliness in Jae-hyun's voice, the doctor's obvious concern, it painted a picture of a man carrying burdens too heavy for one person. That afternoon, she was in the library cataloguing books when Jae-hyun found her. He looked tired, the conversation with Dr. Seo having clearly affected him. How are you settling in? He asked, settling into the chair across from her. Very well, thank you. Everyone's been wonderful. Even Si-woo. There was something sharp in his tone. Celeste looked up from her catalogue. Is there a reason I should have problems with your brother? Jae-hyun was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Si-woo has a tendency to pursue what interests him. I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I can handle unwanted attention, she said firmly. I've been doing it for years. I'm sure you can, but you shouldn't have to. Not here. The protectiveness in his voice made her chest tight. Jae-hyun, I appreciate your concern, but... Do you? He leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. Because sometimes I think you see me as just another employer, someone to be polite to and keep at arm's length. That's what you are, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it? He stood and moved to the window, his back to her. Because I find myself thinking about you at the most inappropriate times, wondering what you're doing if you're happy here, whether you think about me too. Celeste's heart hammered against her ribs. Jae-hyun? I know it's wrong, he continued, still facing away. I know there are a dozen reasons why this is a terrible idea, but I can't seem to stop myself. She stood slowly, her legs unsteady. What are you saying? He turned then, and the raw honesty in his face took her breath away. I'm saying that somewhere between your first day and now, you've become the best part of my day. I'm saying that when Si-woo flirts with you, I want to remind him that you're mine, even though you're not, even though you can't be. The air between them crackled with tension. Celeste knew she should leave, should maintain professional distance. Instead, she found herself moving toward him. This is complicated, she whispered. Everything worthwhile is complicated. They were close enough now that she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried. Without thinking, she reached up and touched his cheek. "When was the last time you let yourself just breathe?" His eyes fluttered closed at her touch. "I don't remember." "That's not living, Jae-hyun, that's just surviving." When he opened his eyes, they were filled with something that made her knees weak. "You make me want to live again." The confession hung between them, vulnerable and honest. Celeste felt herself falling, all her careful walls crumbling. "I think about you too," she admitted quietly. "More than I should." His hand came up to cover hers on his cheek. "Celeste." The library door burst open, making them spring apart. Siwoo stood in the doorway, his usual grin faltering as he took in the scene. "Sorry," he said, though he didn't look sorry at all. "I was looking for you, Hyung. We have that meeting with the Vancouver Cultural Center in an hour." "Right." Jae-hyun's professional mask slammed back into place. "I'll be there shortly." Siwoo's gaze moved between them, curiosity and something else flickering in his eyes. "Celeste, I hope my brother isn't working you too hard." "Not at all," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "Good, because I was hoping you might be free for dinner this weekend. I know this amazing Korean barbecue place." "She's busy," Jae-hyun said flatly. Siwoo raised an eyebrow. "Is she?" I don't think I heard her answer. The tension in the room was suffocating. Celeste looked between the brothers, seeing the challenge in Siwoo's eyes and the barely controlled possessiveness in Jae-hyun's. "I appreciate the invitation," she said carefully, "but I prefer to keep my personal and professional lives separate." "Wise policy," Jae-hyun said, but she caught the flash of relief in his eyes. Siwoo shrugged, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Another time, perhaps. After he left, Jae-hyun turned back to her. "I should apologize for that." "Should you?" "I have no right to speak for you, or to be jealous when other men show interest." "No," she agreed softly. "You don't." They stared at each other, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. "But I am," he said finally. "Jealous. Possessive. Completely inappropriate. Jae-hyun." "I should let you go," he said, moving toward the door, "before I do something we'll both regret." But at the threshold he paused and looked back. "For what it's worth, Celeste, you make me want to be a better man, the kind of man who might actually deserve you." After he left, Celeste sank into her chair, her hands shaking. She was falling for Kim Jae-hyun, and it was going to destroy everything she'd worked to rebuild. But as she touched her cheek where his hand had been, she realized she might not care. The breaking point came 3 weeks later, on a rainy Thursday evening when Celeste was working late in her office. Most of the staff had gone home, and the house felt different in the quiet, more intimate, more dangerous. She was reviewing invoices when her phone rang. The caller ID made her stomach drop. Agent Michael Kowalski, RCMP Financial Crimes Unit. "Miss Johnson, I hope I'm not calling too late." "Agent Kowalski." She kept her voice steady. "What can I do for you?" "I was hoping we could meet. There are some questions about your current employment that we'd like to discuss." Celeste's blood ran cold. "Questions? Nothing serious, just routine inquiries about the Kim family's business operations. Your background in hotel management gives you a unique perspective on their hospitality ventures." The implication was clear. They wanted her to spy on Jae-hyun. "I'm not sure I understand," she said carefully. "Of course. These things are always delicate. Perhaps we could meet for coffee tomorrow. The Starbucks on Robson Street, say 10 a.m. It wasn't really a request. "I'll be there." After she hung up, Celeste sat in the dark, her mind racing. She'd known this day might come. The Kim family's businesses operated in grey areas, and law enforcement had been circling for months. But knowing intellectually and facing the reality were two different things. Working late again? She spun around to find Jae-hyun in the doorway, his tie loosened and sleeves rolled up. Even exhausted, he was devastatingly handsome. "Just finishing up," she said, hoping her voice sounded normal. He moved into the room and she caught the scent of his cologne mixed with something uniquely him. "You look upset. What's wrong?" "Nothing, just tired." Jae-hyun studied her face in the lamplight. "Celeste, I've learned to read people very well. You're not tired. You're scared." The gentleness in his voice nearly broke her resolve. "It's nothing I can't handle. Let me help." "You can't." The words came out sharper than she intended. "Some things I have to deal with alone." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved around her desk and knelt beside her chair, bringing them to eye level. "Talk to me," he said softly. "Please." The concern in his dark eyes, the way he'd positioned himself to make her feel safe rather than trapped, it undid her completely. "The police called," she whispered. Jae-hyun went very still. "What did they want?" "To meet. To ask questions about your family's businesses." "I see." His voice was carefully neutral. "And what did you tell them?" "That I'd meet them tomorrow." She looked down at her hands. "I'm sorry, Jae-hyun. I know this complicates things for you." "Look at me." When she didn't, he gently tilted her chin up. "You have nothing to apologize for. This isn't your fault, isn't it? I brought this into your house. My background, my situation with Gregory Ashford, it made me a target." "No," he said firmly. "My family's choices made us targets long before you arrived. You're just caught in the middle." Tears she'd been holding back finally spilled over. "I don't know what to do. If I don't cooperate, they'll make my life hell. But if I do, if you do, you betray people who've shown you nothing but kindness," he finished quietly. She nodded, unable to speak. Jae-hyun was quiet for a long time, his thumb brushing away her tears with infinite gentleness. "What if you didn't have to choose?" he said finally. "What do you mean? What if you left? Tonight, I could arrange for you to disappear, start over somewhere else. New identity, new life. Enough money to never worry again." The offer hung between them, generous and heartbreaking. "You'd do that for me?" "I'd do anything for you." The words were barely a whisper. "Don't you know that by now?" Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I can't run, Jae-hyun. I've been running from problems my whole life. It's time I stood and faced them." "Even if it destroys you? Even then?" He studied her face, and she saw the moment he recognized her resolve. "Then we face them together." "No," she shook her head. "I won't drag you down with me. You're not dragging me anywhere I don't want to go." He stood and pulled her up with him. "Celeste, these past months, you've changed everything for me. You've made me remember what it feels like to hope, to want something beyond duty and responsibility. Jae-hyun, I love you." The words exploded out of him like they'd been held back too long. "I love your strength, your integrity, the way you make me want to be better. I love how you see past all the walls I've built and somehow find the man underneath." Her heart shattered and soared simultaneously. "I love you too," she whispered. "But love isn't enough, not for this. It's everything." His hands framed her face. "It's the only thing that matters." Before she could protest, his lips found hers. The kiss was desperate, full of everything they couldn't say. She melted into him, memorizing the feel of his mouth, the way he held her like she was precious. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "Come away with me," he said against her forehead. "Tonight. We'll figure out the rest later. You know I can't do that." "Then tell them the truth, that you're a household coordinator, nothing more, that you don't have access to sensitive information." "Will that be enough?" His silence was answer enough. "I have to go," she said, stepping back. "The meeting is early and I need to think." "Celeste, please, I need time to process this." He nodded reluctantly. "I'll drive you home. I'll take a cab." "Like hell you will." His voice carried an edge of steel. "Not tonight. Not when you're upset. The drive to her apartment was silent, heavy with everything left unsaid. When he pulled up to her building, she turned to him one last time. Whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that these months have been the happiest of my life. This isn't goodbye, he said fiercely. I won't let it be. But as she walked away, they both knew it might be exactly that. In her apartment, Celeste sat by the window looking out at the city lights, her phone in her hands. She could call Agent Kowalski, cancel the meeting, disappear with Jae-hyun into whatever new life he could create for them. Or she could face tomorrow with her integrity intact, even if it cost her everything. By dawn, she'd made her choice. The Starbucks on Robson Street was crowded with the morning rush, providing perfect cover for a clandestine meeting. Celeste spotted Agent Kowalski immediately, mid-40s, unremarkable in the way that screamed law enforcement, nursing a black coffee at a corner table. Miss Johnson. He stood as she approached. Thank you for coming. I don't have much time, she said, settling across from him. I'll be direct then. He pulled out a tablet showing her surveillance photos of the Kim mansion. We've been watching the family for months. Money laundering, tax evasion, connections to organized crime. We need someone inside. I'm a household coordinator, Agent Kowalski. I arrange dinner parties and manage staff schedules. You're also a trained hotel manager with an eye for financial irregularities, the same skills that got you in trouble with Gregory Ashford. The mention of her former boss made her jaw tighten. What does that have to do with anything? We know about your lawsuit, about how Ashford destroyed your career for doing the right thing. He leaned forward. Help us, and we'll make sure your case gets the attention it deserves. Full reinstatement, compensation, your reputation restored. It was exactly what she'd dreamed of for 2 years. Her old life back, her career restored, justice served. What exactly are you asking me to do? Document what you see, financial records, meeting notes, anything that seems unusual. We're particularly interested in their casino operations and real estate investments. And if I refuse? His smile was cold. Then you remain a person of interest in an ongoing investigation. Immigration might take a closer look at your work visa. The hotel industry is small, Miss Johnson. Word gets around. The threat was clear. Cooperate or be destroyed. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. He slid a business card across the table. Make the right choice. Celeste walked out of the coffee shop feeling like she was drowning. Every option led to betrayal, of Jae-hyun, of herself, of everything she believed in. She was so lost in thought that she almost missed the black sedan following her. Almost. Training from her hotel security days kicked in. She ducked into a department store, used the back exit, and caught a taxi to the Kim mansion. But the feeling of being watched lingered. Mrs. Brown took one look at her face and ushered her into the kitchen. Child, you look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, Celeste lied. Is Mr. Kim in? In his study with Dr. Seo. They've been talking for an hour. Celeste nodded and escaped to her office, but she couldn't concentrate. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow seemed threatening. She was reviewing catering contracts when her door opened. Jae-hyun entered, his expression grim. We need to talk, he said, closing the door behind him. If this is about last night, it's about the car that followed you from downtown and the federal agents who've been asking questions about our staff. Celeste's blood turned to ice. How did you... I have people who watch for these things. He moved to the window, checking the street. What did they want, Celeste? Information about your family's businesses. And what did you tell them? Nothing. Yet. She met his eyes. They gave me 24 hours to decide. Jae-hyun was quiet for a long moment. What are you going to do? I don't know. The admission felt like failure. They're offering me everything I've wanted. My career back, justice against Gregory Ashford. But the price is my family's freedom. Yes. He moved to her desk, bracing his hands on the surface. Celeste, I need you to understand something. The businesses my father built, the empire I inherited, it's not what you think. What do you mean? We operate in grey areas, yes. We have connections that law enforcement finds suspicious, but we're not criminals in the way they want to believe. He looked up at her. My father started with nothing. He built legitimate businesses, but he had to make deals, form alliances, work within systems that weren't always clean. It's the price of success for people like us. Are you asking me to trust you? I'm asking you to trust yourself. You've been here for months. You've seen our operations, our books, our family. Do we seem like monsters to you? Celeste thought about Mrs. Han's kindness, Mrs. Brown's maternal care, the way Jae-hyun treated his staff with respect and dignity. No, she said quietly, you don't. Then you know what you have to do. Before she could respond, commotion erupted in the hallway, shouting, running footsteps, the sound of doors slamming. Jae-hyun was moving before the first shout ended, pulling Celeste behind him as he opened the office door. Sai-woo appeared in the hallway, his face pale. Hyung, we have a problem. Federal agents are at the front gate with warrants. How many? 6 cars. They're surrounding the property. Jae-hyun's jaw tightened. Get everyone to the safe room, now. What about? Si-woo's gaze flicked to Celeste. She comes with us. Jae-hyun, no! Celeste stepped forward. If I'm with you when they search, it'll look like I'm part of whatever they think you're doing. I don't care how it looks, and I do. She touched his arm. Let me go to them. Let me tell them I was just an employee who knew nothing. Absolutely not. It's the only way to protect everyone. The sound of the front door being breached echoed through the house. There's no time, Si-woo said urgently. Jae-hyun looked between his brother and Celeste, torn between protecting his family and protecting her. Go, Celeste said firmly. I'll handle this. Celeste. I love you, she said, the words carrying the weight of goodbye. That's why I have to do this. Before he could stop her, she walked toward the front of the house, toward the agents who were already spreading through the rooms. I'm Celeste Johnson, she announced to the lead agent. I'm the household coordinator. I'd like to cooperate with your investigation. As they led her away for questioning, she caught a glimpse of Jae-hyun watching from the shadows, his face a mask of anguish and rage. The next 6 hours were a blur of questions, accusations, and legal threats. But Celeste stuck to her story. She was a domestic worker, nothing more. She knew nothing about the family's business operations beyond managing household events. When they finally released her, the sun was setting. The mansion was empty, the family gone. A note waited on her desk in Jae-hyun's precise handwriting. My darling Celeste, by the time you read this, we'll be gone. The charges won't stick. They never do. But the investigation will continue for months. I won't ask you to wait, and I won't ask you to run. You deserve better than a life in the shadows. Know that you saved us today. Your courage, your integrity. It protected everyone I care about. I will never forget that gift. I will love you until my last breath. Always yours, Jae-hyun P.S. Check your bank account. It's not payment. It's a promise that you'll never have to compromise your principles for survival again. Celeste sank into her chair, tears streaming down her face. She'd done the right thing, protected the people who'd become her family, but the cost felt unbearable. Her phone buzzed with a text from Agent Kowalski. Smart choice today. Your lawsuit against Ashford will be resolved within the month. Full reinstatement and compensation. She should have felt victorious. Instead, she felt empty. 3 days later, she was packing her apartment when Mrs. Brown appeared at her door. Child, you look terrible. I'm fine, Celeste lied, the same lie she'd been telling everyone. No, you're not, and neither is he. Celeste's hand stilled on her suitcase. How is he? Miserable. Dr. Seo says he's not sleeping, barely eating. The boy's heartbroken. He'll recover. He's strong. Strong enough to survive, maybe, but not strong enough to live. Mrs. Brown sat on the bed. Do you know what he's planning to do? I don't want to know. He's going to legitimize everything. Sell the questionable businesses, restructure the legitimate ones, submit to full government oversight. He's willing to give up everything his father built. Celeste's breath caught. Why would he do that? Because you showed him there was another way to live. Because he'd rather have integrity and lose everything than keep his empire and lose his soul. Mrs. Brown, he's not asking you to come back, child. He knows you've made your choice, but I thought you should know that your courage didn't just save his family. It saved him, too. After Mrs. Brown left, Celeste sat in her empty apartment and made a decision that would change everything. 18 months later, the grand opening of the Kim Cultural Center was everything Celeste had dreamed it could be. The converted mansion now housed art galleries, performance spaces, and community programs that served Vancouver's diverse population. Legitimate, beautiful, and completely transparent. She stood in the main gallery watching Jae-hyun give a speech to the assembled crowd. He looked different, lighter somehow despite the challenges of the past year and a half. The federal investigation had ended, with no charges filed. The business restructuring had cost millions, but created something better. He cleans up nice, a familiar voice said behind her. Celeste turned to find Dr. Seo Dong-wook smiling at her. Dr. Seo, I wasn't sure you'd be here. Wouldn't miss it. This place is his dream come true. The doctor studied her face. How are you, my dear? The hotel management position is treating you well. Very well, thank you. She'd been reinstated at the Fairmont with a promotion and full compensation. Gregory Ashford was facing his own legal troubles now. I'm happy. Are you? Dr. Seo's knowing look made her squirm. Because happiness and contentment aren't the same thing. Before she could respond, the crowd began to applaud. Jae-hyun's speech was ending. I'd like to thank everyone who made this dream possible, he was saying, especially someone who taught me that integrity isn't just about doing the right thing when it's easy. It's about doing the right thing when it costs you everything. His eyes found hers across the room and her breath caught. Even after all this time, he could still make her heart race with just a look. This center exists because one person showed me that there's always another way. That love and honor aren't weaknesses. They're the only things that make us truly strong. The applause was thunderous, but Celeste barely heard it. She was lost in Jae-hyun's gaze, in the love and longing she saw there. As the crowd began to mingle, she slipped out onto the terrace that overlooked English Bay, the same view she'd admired from his study window all those months ago. Running away again. She turned to find him standing in the doorway, devastatingly handsome in his dark suit. Just getting some air, she said. Congratulations. The center is beautiful. Thank you. He moved to stand beside her at the railing. I hear you're doing well. Hotel management suits you. It does. I'm grateful for the opportunity. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the sunset paint the water gold. I missed you, he said quietly. Every day. Jae-hyun. I know. I know you've built a new life, and I have no right to disrupt it. But I needed you to know that what we had, it changed everything for me. Celeste turned to face him fully. It changed everything for me, too. Did it? Hope flickered in his dark eyes. I learned that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone worth fighting for. She took a breath. And I learned that running away doesn't solve anything. It just postpones the reckoning. What are you saying? I'm saying that I've spent 18 months trying to convince myself that I made the right choice, that duty and integrity mattered more than love. They do matter. Yes, but so does this. She gestured between them. So does what we have. What we could have. Jae-hyun stepped closer. Celeste, if you're saying what I think you're saying, I'm saying I love you. I'm saying I want to try again if you'll have me. I'm saying that maybe, just maybe, we can build something beautiful together. His hands framed her face and she saw tears in his eyes. Are you sure? Because I can't lose you again. I barely survived it the first time. I'm sure. She smiled through her own tears. Besides, someone has to keep you honest now that you're a respectable businessman. He laughed, the sound full of joy and relief. I can think of worse fates. When he kissed her, it felt like coming home, like all the pieces of her life finally clicking into place. I have something for you, he said against her lips. What? He pulled back and reached into his jacket, producing a small velvet box. I bought this 2 years ago. The day after our first kiss. I've been carrying it ever since. Celeste's heart stopped as he dropped to one knee. Celeste Johnson, you saved my life in every way a person can be saved. You made me want to be worthy of your love. Will you marry me? Through her tears, she saw the ring, a perfect solitaire that caught the last rays of sunlight. Yes, she whispered. Yes, absolutely yes. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, the terrace doors opened and their friends and family spilled out. Mrs. Brown crying happy tears, Dr. Seo beaming with satisfaction, even Saiwoo grinning as he started a slow clap. About time, Saiwoo called out. I was starting to think you'd never get your act together, Hyung. Jae-hyun stood and pulled Celeste into his arms, spinning her around as everyone cheered. I love you, he said, setting her down but keeping her close. I love you too, she replied. And this time I'm not running anywhere. Good, he said, kissing her again, because I'm never letting you go. As the celebration continued around them, Celeste looked out at the bay and smiled. She'd found her way home at last, not to a place but to a person, to love that was worth fighting for, worth waiting for, worth everything. And for the first time in her life, she was exactly where she belonged.